Overcoming Anxiety with Stoicism. Techniques to manage stress. Imagine this scenario. You have a big exam or work deadline tomorrow. Your heart is racing, your mind is stuck on what-if thoughts, and you feel completely overwhelmed. Most of us have been there, feeling anxious about the future or stressed by things outside our control. In moments like these, it's easy to feel powerless. But what if an ancient philosophy could help us find calm and regain control of our minds? Stoicism is an ancient Greek and Roman philosophy that is surprisingly practical for modern life. It was practiced by people like Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, Seneca, a playwright and advisor, and Epictetus, a former slave turned teacher. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions or being indifferent. It's about training ourselves to focus on what we can control, like our own thoughts and actions, and let go of worrying about what we can't control. As the Stoic teacher Epictetus said, some things are in our control and others not. This simple idea is at the heart of managing anxiety, learning to distinguish between what's up to us and what's beyond us. Today, we'll explore how Stoicism can help anyone, whether you're a student stressing over grades, a professional facing job pressures, or just someone dealing with life's uncertainties. In this speech, we'll cover specific Stoic techniques to manage stress and anxiety. We'll start by understanding what anxiety is and the Stoic mindset toward it. Then, we'll dive into 5 practical Stoic techniques, from journaling exercises to mindset shifts, that you can use to overcome anxiety. We'll also discuss how to apply Stoicism in your daily life with simple practices and share a couple of real-life examples of people who used Stoic ideas to handle severe stress. By the end, you'll have a toolkit of actionable strategies and hopefully a calmer, more reassured outlook on whatever challenges you face. The tone today will be calm, reassuring, and motivational. You don't need any background in philosophy. Stoicism is for everyone, and its lessons are straightforward. Think of this as a friendly guide. Take a deep breath, and let's discover how ancient wisdom can help us find peace in today's anxious world. 1. Understanding anxiety and the Stoic mindset. Why we feel anxious. What is anxiety? At its core, anxiety is our mind's natural reaction to stress and uncertainty. It's that uneasy feeling when we anticipate potential problems or threats. A student might feel anxiety before an exam, imagining failure. An employee might feel it before a presentation, worrying about mistakes. Anxiety often stems from our imagination running wild with negative possibilities. As Stoic philosopher Seneca observed, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. In other words, our minds tend to create extra pain by dwelling on fears that haven't even happened. Understanding this is the first step. Much of our suffering comes from inside, from our thoughts about the situation rather than the situation itself. From a Stoic perspective, anxiety affects us because we are focusing on things we can't control. We worry about tomorrow's outcome, other people's opinions, or random events, all things we personally cannot dictate. Stoicism teaches that the key to peace of mind is recognizing the difference between what's up to us and what isn't. This is known as the dichotomy of control. Epictetus put it plainly. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion. In short, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control include our body, property, reputation, whatever are not our own actions. When we spend energy fretting over things like what others will do, how the economy will behave, or whether it might rain on our wedding day, we set ourselves up for anxiety because those outcomes are uncertain and beyond our direct control. Stoicism reminds us to redirect that energy to what is in our control, our own thoughts, choices, and responses. To adopt a Stoic mindset toward anxiety, we start by accepting that we can't control everything. This isn't resignation, it's empowerment. If you can't control an outcome, say the score you'll get after you've submitted your best work, or how someone else might behave, it's not useful to obsess over it. Focus on what you can control, like studying hard, preparing well, and managing your reactions. By doing so, you reduce the futile worry about what-if scenarios. You also regain a sense of agency, realizing I can't control the future, but I can control how I act right now. This shift is deeply calming. It takes you out of the whirlwind of anxious thoughts and grounds you in the present moment and your own actions. Even a powerful Stoic like Marcus Aurelius, who ruled as Roman emperor, felt anxiety and worked to manage it. In his personal diary meditations, Marcus wrote candidly about his worries and how he overcame them. For example, he noted, "One day, today, I escaped from anxiety." Or no, I discarded it because it was within me, in my own perceptions, not outside. Marcus realized that the source of his stress was not external events, but how his mind was perceiving them. By changing his perception, he could find inner calm. This exemplifies the Stoic mindset. Even when facing wars and immense responsibilities, Marcus trained himself to focus on maintaining inner peace rather than getting caught up in externals. If a Roman emperor found relief by using Stoic principles, we too can learn to recognize that our anxiety often comes from within, and that's exactly where we have the power to make a change. So, to summarize the Stoic mindset on anxiety, anxiety is natural, but it grows when we fear things beyond our control. By remembering what's in our control, our own thoughts and actions, and what isn't, we can start to loosen anxiety's grip. Instead of panicking about a possible failure or an imagined catastrophe, we tell ourselves, I will do my best with what I can control and accept the rest. This isn't just positive thinking. It's a rational approach that many Stoics use to stay calm under pressure. In fact, the Stoics were pragmatic. They didn't assume things would always go well. They prepared for challenges, but they refused to let the fear of those challenges paralyze them. In the next sections, we'll build on this foundation. We know now that managing anxiety starts with changing how we think about stress and focusing on what we can control. With that in mind, let's learn some concrete techniques from Stoicism that you can practice daily to overcome anxiety and find more tranquility. Second, Stoic techniques to overcome anxiety. Practical tools. Now that we understand the basic Stoic perspective, that anxiety comes from within, and that focusing on what we control can reduce our stress, let's dive into practical techniques. These 5 techniques are drawn straight from Stoic writings and practices. They are journaling and reflection, negative visualization, daily Stoic mantras, the power of perspective, and living in the present moment. Each one is a tool you can use to manage stress and cultivate a calmer mind. As we go through them, think about how you might incorporate these into your own routine. They don't require any special equipment, just a bit of time and an open mind. 2.1 Journaling and Reflection. Writing your way to clarity. One powerful Stoic technique for reducing anxiety is journaling, the practice of writing down your thoughts and reflecting on them regularly. The idea is simple but profound. When you put your worries and thoughts on paper, you externalize them. They're no longer just swirling chaotically in your head. You can see them, examine them, and gain clarity. Many of the great Stoics were essentially journaling. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations is basically his private journal of reflections. Seneca, another Stoic philosopher, also advocated for daily self-reflection. What does Stoic journaling look like? Seneca described his own nightly routine like this. When the light has been taken away and my wife has fallen silent, I examine my entire day, going through what I have done and said. I conceal nothing from myself. I pass nothing by. I have nothing to fear from my errors when I can say, see that you do not do this any more. For the moment, I excuse you. Each night, he would review the day's events in a journal or in his mind, judging his own actions as if in a courtroom. The next line, as Seneca says, is effectively telling himself to learn and forgive. For the moment, I excuse you, meaning he acknowledges any mistakes but doesn't carry guilt unnecessarily. Instead, he focuses on doing better tomorrow. This kind of reflective journaling has several benefits for anxiety. Gaining perspective on problems. When you write down what you're anxious about, you might find it looks less scary on paper. Maybe you see a solution you missed, or you realize a fear was exaggerated. Identifying triggers and patterns. Journaling helps you spot patterns in your thinking. Perhaps every time you have a certain type of task, your notes show you get anxious. Recognizing that pattern is the first step to breaking it. Self-compassion and improvement. Like Seneca forgiving himself for mistakes and resolving to improve, you can use your journal to practice a bit of self-compassion. Today was hard, but I got through it. And to set a small goal for tomorrow. Next time I feel this stress, I'll take a walk to clear my head. It turns anxiety into a problem-solving session rather than helpless rumination. To get started with Stoic journaling, you don't need to be a great writer. This journal is for you, no one else. You might write each morning or evening for just 5 or 10 minutes. For example, each evening you could jot down, what caused me stress today? How did I respond? What could I do better? In fact, Stoics, like Seneca, а зрение вы не пойманы полностью неожиданно. Moreover, this practice often brings gratitude. Seneca noted that reflecting on worst cases makes us appreciate what we have now more. If you imagine, what if I lost my home, and walk through that scenario, when you open your eyes and look around at the home you do have, you feel more grateful and less likely to take it for granted. The fear transforms into appreciation. A modern example. Some therapists and psychologists use a similar technique called defensive pessimism, or even encourage their clients to face the worst case, then plan. It's very much in line with Stoicism. In fact, a popular writer and Stoic enthusiast, Tim Ferriss, calls this exercise fear setting as opposed to goal setting. By writing down your fears and what you'd do if they came true, you not only tame the fear, but often discover proactive steps you can take now to prevent those bad outcomes. You replace paralyzing fear with a sense of preparedness. It's important to schedule this practice wisely. You wouldn't do negative visualization all the time. That could be draining. The Stoics recommended it occasionally, maybe once a week, or when you notice a particular fear nagging at you repeatedly, sit down and do this exercise. Afterward, you'll likely feel a bit lighter. You have essentially told your brain, I have a plan. I know it might not go perfectly, but I can handle it. With that assurance, the anxious part of your mind can relax. In everyday moments, this technique helps too. If you start thinking, oh no, what if this meeting goes badly? Catch yourself and convert it to a quick stoic exercise. All right, what if it does? Then I'll maybe apologize and try again or learn from the feedback, etc. Immediately, the fear loses some bite. You've looked it in the face and found a way through. 2.3 daily Stoic mantras, using Stoic wisdom to shift your mindset. Sometimes when anxiety strikes, we need a quick way to center ourselves and recall a wiser perspective. This is where Stoic mantras, quotes, or affirmations can be extremely useful. A mantra is basically a short, memorable phrase that captures an important truth. By repeating or remembering it in stressful moments, we redirect our mind away from panic and toward calm and reason. The Stoics left us many one-liners of wisdom. Let's consider a few and how they help with anxiety. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. This is a fantastic mantra for when you feel overwhelmed. Maybe you're anxious about an upcoming job interview. Reciting Marcus's words reminds you, focus on controlling your mind, preparing well, staying calm, rather than obsessing over the outcome, which is an outside event. It shifts your attention to where your true strength lies. By repeating this, you interrupt the spiral of thoughts about what the interviewer will think, and instead concentrate on I can control my preparation and my responses, nothing more. It's amazingly empowering and reduces wasted worry. It does not matter what you bear, but how you bear it. Seneca. This Stoic quote is a reminder that attitude is everything. Life will hand us challenges, some we can't avoid. Anxiety often comes from dreading these challenges. Seneca's mantra says, what matters is not the load, but how you carry it. In a tough situation, instead of thinking, this shouldn't be happening, tell yourself, all right, this is what's happening. I can choose to face it with grace and courage. By focusing on how you handle things, you again come back to what's in your control, your response, and let go of complaining about the fact that it's happening, which you can't control. This reduces the mental resistance and second layer of suffering, being anxious about being anxious, upset that you're upset, etc. The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. Seneca. This is a mantra to jolt you out of future tripping and back into the present. We'll talk more about living in the present moment in a later section. Telling yourself, the future is uncertain, I must live now, can cut through a bout of anxiety about tomorrow. It reminds you that you can't solve future problems by worrying in the present. You can only live in the now, do what's best now, and by doing so, you're actually preparing a better future. This quote can be soothing when you catch yourself piling up a mountain of what if this or that happens next week? Recognize the uncertainty and choose to focus on what's happening right this moment instead. If you seek tranquility, do less. Marcus Aurelius. Marcus wrote that often we add unnecessary things to our lives, cluttering our time and minds. A modern mantra from this might be, do less but better. Anxiety can surge when we are overwhelmed by a huge to-do list or when we are multitasking frantically. Marcus's advice reminds us it's okay to simplify. The power of perspective, zooming out from your problems. When we're anxious, our problems feel huge and all-consuming. It's like holding a small coin right up to your eye. It can block the view of the entire sun. In the same way, a single worry can block out everything good or logical if we hold it too close. One Stoic method to counter this is gaining perspective. In other words, mentally zooming out to see the bigger picture. Stoics often reflected on the vastness of the world, the sweep of time, and the smallness of our individual concerns in that grand scheme. This wasn't to make themselves feel insignificant in a bad way, but to lighten the perceived weight of their anxieties. 2.5 Living in the present moment. Mindfulness, Stoic style. Anxiety often pulls us into the future. We're not worried about what's happening now. We're worried about what might happen later. The Stoics, much like many Eastern philosophies, taught the importance of being present. Living in the present moment means fully experiencing now without being consumed by regrets of the past or fears of the future. It's a form of mindfulness that pairs perfectly with Stoicism. Why is the present moment so powerful for reducing anxiety? Because in the present, we usually realize we're actually okay. Think about it. At this exact moment, as you listen to this speech, you are presumably safe. The worries are usually about things that aren't currently happening. As one Stoic-influenced saying goes, if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. Do your best to live in the present. While reality is a bit more complex, there's truth in it. Focusing on the present brings your mind back from those distant, uncontrolled realms, past and future, to the here and now, where you can act and find certainty in what is. How can we practice living in the present, especially when anxious thoughts keep yanking us into the future? Here are a few simple practical ways. Mindful breathing. This is as straightforward as it sounds. When you notice an anxiety wave coming, your chest tightens, thoughts race. Pause and take a slow, deep breath. Inhale for a count of 4. Hold for 2. Exhale for 6. Find a rhythm comfortable for you. As you do this, focus only on the breath. Feel the air filling your lungs and then leaving. Grounding your senses. A quick exercise many therapists recommend is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, which aligns well with Stoic mindfulness. Wherever you are, do the following. Name 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel tactily, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste, or like the taste of. This forces you to pay attention to your immediate environment through your senses. It pulls you out of your mind's abstract worries and into contact with reality around you. Single-tasking what you're doing right now. Anxiety can make it hard to concentrate, but ironically, concentration is a remedy for anxiety. If you're worrying while trying to do something else, practice gently bringing your focus back to the task at hand. For example, if you are washing dishes and feeling anxious about an email you need to send later, deliberately focus on the dishes, the warmth of water, the smell of soap, the act of cleaning. It sounds mundane, but these small acts of present awareness steady the mind. 3. Applying Stoicism in daily life, making it a habit. We've explored several Stoic techniques. Now, how do we weave them into our everyday life so that managing stress becomes second nature? The key is to start small and consistent. You don't need to overhaul your entire routine overnight. Instead, try adding 1 or 2 Stoic practices into your day and watch the difference over time. Let's paint a picture of how a day with Stoic practices might look and share some real-life inspiration. Morning. You wake up And instead of immediately grabbing your phone and getting hit with a flood of emails or news, which can spike anxiety, you take 5 to 10 minutes for a Stoic morning ritual. This could be reading a short passage from a Stoic text or a daily Stoic quote and reflecting on it. For example, you read Marcus Aurelius saying, "Begin each day by telling yourself, 'Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, arrogance, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness.'" He famously advised preparing for difficult people in the morning. During the day, as you go through your daily tasks, school, work, chores, make use of the Stoic tools as needed. Perhaps, before an important meeting or exam, you do a quick negative visualization to imagine it not going perfectly and realize you'd still be okay. Thus, you enter less nervously and maybe even perform better because you're not paralyzed by fear. Or if something frustrating happens, say you hit traffic or a colleague is snappy, you remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. Can I control this situation? No, I can only control my response. That little check can prevent you from stewing in anger or anxiety about it. Instead, you focus on calming yourself or finding a workaround. Maybe use the traffic time to listen to a nice podcast or respond to your colleague with understanding instead of snapping back. Evening. At day's end, do a bit of journaling and reflection. This doesn't have to be long. You could write a few sentences about how the day went, especially focusing on how you dealt with any anxiety or stress. Maybe note a victory. Felt anxious about project update, but remembered to only focus on what I can control. Meeting went well. Also note any point where you struggled. Got very worried about something and wasted an hour. Tomorrow, I'll try the breathing exercise sooner. By reflecting, you cement the lessons of the day. Seneca believed this nightly practice improves us continuously. Over time, you see your progress. Perhaps a month ago, you would have lost your temper or panicked in a situation that today you handled calmly. That feels rewarding and motivates you to keep practicing. Final motivation, remember that anxiety doesn't have to control your life. It might always be a visitor. Everyone feels anxious at times, but it doesn't have to be the boss. You have learned ways to greet that visitor, acknowledge it, and then show it out the door. You are stronger and more resilient than you think. The Stoic philosophers, despite living 2,000 years ago, were dealing with the same human emotions and troubles we have today, and their solutions are just as relevant now. They believed in the power of the individual to cultivate inner strength and tranquility, regardless of external circumstances. As you start applying these ideas, trust that you are walking a path trodden by emperors, soldiers, artists, slaves turned teachers, and many ordinary people across history who found comfort and courage in Stoicism. Call to action. I invite you to try one Stoic technique today. Perhaps tonight, take 5 minutes to journal about your day, or tomorrow morning, read a Stoic quote and carry it with you mentally. Maybe the next time you feel nerves rising, take that deep breath and recall, I have power over my mind, not the situation. Choose one tool that spoke to you and practice it. See how it feels and note any small improvement. Even a tiny reduction in stress or a slightly better response is a win. Over weeks, these small wins add up to a noticeable shift in how you handle stress. To conclude, overcoming anxiety with Stoicism is a journey of mindset and practice. It's about training ourselves little by little to meet life with a calm and steady spirit. As the Stoics knew, we can't control the length of our life or the events that happen around us, but we can control how we live each day and how we face whatever comes. By using these techniques, you're not just managing anxiety, you're also building character, wisdom, and resilience. Take heart in knowing that every step you take to manage stress is a step toward freedom. Freedom from being pushed and pulled by every external worry. Instead, you become guided by your own reasoned choices and values. In the words of Epictetus, and a perfect note to end on, no man is free who is not master of himself. Through Stoicism, we learn to become masters of ourselves, and in doing so, we find the freedom of a peaceful mind, even in a chaotic world. Thank you for listening, and I encourage you to go out and try these Stoic techniques. You might just find a new level of calm and confidence you didn't realize you had. Keep practicing, stay present, and let Stoicism support you in overcoming anxiety and living a fuller life.